We are back with Contemporary Black Voices with our second edition of our topic. Today, we're talking about the future of the black man in America. And when I say the black man, I'm talking about the whole black race, actually, of how we deal with blacks in America and whether or not we have a future or not. When we left off, we were talking about, Caleb was mentioning to us about how he met someone in Boston from actually was from South Africa, but he was Indian heritage, and he was saying how discrimination was worse in America than it ever was in South Africa. And I would like Caleb to talk more about that.
Okay. No, I think what he was talking about was just the conversation was also involved another gentleman who was actually from the Indian continent. He was a Sikh gentleman, and so he did the guy from the Indian subcontinent didn't actually understand structural racism, and so the guy who's of Indian heritage from South Africa was he was also trying to explain to this guy what structural racism is and what it meant, and so someone who's familiar with structural impediments to progress,
Okay.
Was trying to explain that to someone who was not familiar with that, which was surprising because they were colonized by the British, but he still didn't act. I guess he didn't understand the structural impediments, structural racism, and I see that on social media all the time where white folks pretend like they don't understand what structural racism is, but that's basically what that conversation was about. But like I said, he mentioned how their community, even after they were able to integrate, still stayed together. And so if you look at where they are today, they are doing quite well. The Indian population in South Africa is quite okay economically.
The question I ask is that in America, it seems like the goalpost is always being moved.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are always being changed.
Right.
So whatever you think you are doing today and what the rules are today, and we begin to follow those rules that are in place today, once we begin to master that game and do the things that we need to do, then the rules are changed. And to me, a very good example in that is, we always thought that if we got the laws passed, the 13th Amendment, the different things that were passed, that was going to be for us. Well, you've got the left and Trump and people like that who are saying, the Supreme Court is saying, well, those laws aren't meant for us, okay? And we never were supposed to be included in the Constitution when they talked about all men.
Well, I mean, and that preceded Trump. So even if we take Trump out the conversation, take MAG out the conversation.
Right.
America is still America.
Right.
And these things definitely predated Trump. These institutions that impede black progress. And so there was a study that was put out by McKinsey. And in this study, their research came back and stated very clearly, it would take the black community in America 300 years to catch up economically to the white community.
That's a long time, Caleb.
That is a long time. That when we talk about structural impediments, we talk about generational impediments. We talk about generational wealth gap, and it's compounded. And so when you talk about the rules change, the rules have never changed. The rules have always been there to keep that gap in place. And that gap has not only been kept in place, but it's expanding. Those rules have always been in place to impede black access to education through standardized entrance tests, inferior schools, substandard housing.
Just a second. I want to remind our viewers that we're talking about the future of the black man in America. Now, I want you to restate what you just stated was the McKinsey report. What did they say?
300 years.
Okay. So folks, do you have 300 years to be able to wait to be able to have the future of black Americans?
Right.
And that's the question that I began to ask. Do you have 300 years to do that?
And so when you talk, again, this country, the foundation of this country is economics. And so we have to, regardless of who's in place or who's in power, we have to get our economic house in order. You know what I mean? We have to start dealing with one another, buying from one another, doing business with one another, creating wealth together, supporting one another. And so what's lacking in this country is black on black support.
Okay.
Our support for one another, our support for each other's businesses. So that's what's lacking. Regardless of the structural impediments, we are our own worst enemy. So when you talk about the future of Black America, we have to turn that mirror on ourselves. And I know this is not, nobody wants to turn the mirror on themselves when you say, well, what's, you know what I'm saying, what's stopping you from doing this? And when you put the mirror in front of their face, nobody likes that. They want everything else is what's stopping us. This is this and this and this and this. But the truth is, sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
But I think you bring up a very good point, is because we cannot really trust ourselves to do good for ourselves, because we have not necessarily been in a position to do that for a number of reasons, which I won't go into here, but we have not been able to come together. We don't really, at this particular time, want to accept a leader. Our leaders have been exterminated. We've had no succession plan to come in to be able to replace our leaders, but yet and still, you're saying that we've got to look within and be able to do some things for ourselves to be able to get to where we want to go. I think those are very good comments, okay? But how do we do that?
And you and I, we go back and forth all the time. Almost every episode of this leader thing, you know?
We do.
Right. Obama says
we do.
We are the change we've been waiting for. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, why, you know what? I mean, it's like, I'll give you an example. My son, right? The trash man in my neighborhood runs every Monday and every Thursday, right? So I tell him, if you know every Monday and every Thursday the trash man is coming, why do I have to tell you what you need to do? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We know what we need to do. We don't need anybody to tell us what we need to do. We can look around and we see what's going on in our communities. We see the situation. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you know what? Me and my wife, I tell her, you know what I'm saying? Why? I pay all this money for iPhones. I refuse to wake a child up to go to school in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So you got an iPhone, you know what I'm saying? You got $1,000 phone, and I know it got an alarm on it. You know what I'm saying? So just like if you could get on social media, you could do this, you could do this, you could do all these changes and graphics and all this kind of stuff. You can put a timer, you know what I'm saying, an alarm, set your alarm on that iPhone. So it's just, we know what needs to be done. We have to get up and do it. You know what I'm saying? It's about self-motivation. And my kid, my daughter, she's good about that. She gets up, she goes to school, she does what she needs to do. You know what I mean? She understands her future's in her hands. Her future is what she makes it. You know what I mean? And so we have to take that kind of self-responsibility.
Okay, so how do we do that when you've got a lead organization like the NAACP that has mostly white corporate people as their commissioners or whoever they are on their board? So it makes it very difficult to say anything or to do anything or to make any policies that can be made to be able to advance the Black man when you've got major corporate white leadership on your board.
But why do we need the NAACP?
Well, you may not, but we've got to. But we do, I think, need to have some kind of organization about us. You've got the Nation of Islam, where people will come back and say, well, we don't want them. And some of them will say because they don't like Farrakhan, they don't like Elijah Muhammad, they didn't like Malcolm X, they didn't like this, they don't like the Muslim religion or whatever. There's always something. And my feeling is there's always going to be something with somebody or something that you don't like.
Well, my question is, are we under-organized or over-organized? Are there too many organizations? And the fact that there's so many organizations, does that actually dilute our power? You know what I mean? And so, there's some questions that we have to ask, and we have to do some deep self-reflection as a community.
Well, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, let's talk about that. Are we self-deluded? Be right back.